So, anywho, well, hey everybody, it's at Percussion Podcast. It's Casey Cangelosi. It's June 13th. It's episode 291. And it's the last roundtable we're going to have before just a little break. I think we've got like a month and a half break scheduled or so. We'll be back with you sometime in August for episode 292. And we never plugged this enough, so I'll just plug it real quick. You can join these roundtables if you want by joining the Patreon. You can find all that stuff on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. There's links to all that good stuff. And yeah, we really appreciate your support with that. And we do these, I don't know, probably, once every 2 months, something like that. Hopefully we get around to doing them a little more for you. But if you're interested in supporting the show, that's one way you can do it. And of course, you can also support us simply by just like listening, subscribing, doing all that good stuff, sharing all that stuff. That helps the show or whatever. And let's see what else. Oh, one other note I wanted to make is, if you've been listening to us steadily, but maybe you need to go back. Some podcasts, like channels and podcatchers, don't go all the way back to episode 1. So if you ever want to go all the way back to episode 1, you might not be able to find that on like whatever your preferred podcast listening app is, be it even like Spotify or iTunes or Google Podcasts or whatever. But you can definitely find all the way back to episode 1 on YouTube. It's archived there. You can also go all the way back to episode 1 and everything in between on the Podbean side. So we got links to all that stuff. You just have to take a minute and go find it, and you can go back and listen if you want more stuff to listen to in the month off. So what else is going on over here? We got Karli Viña. Hey, Karli.
Hey, Casey.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Just fine, thanks. Also, Ksenija Komljenović. What do you say, Ksenija?
Hey, I have nothing to say. I'm just in awe at looking at Alan driving and doing the multitasking for real.
His internet's a little sketchy though. Like sometimes it looks like he's not driving, but he clearly is now. Alan's one of our supporters. Hey, Alan Lang, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fine, man. Hey, I was going to tell you real quick what happened in release date. It is July 1st that this episode's going to come out on. And my favorite thing I found was the death date of Erik Satie. Erik Satie is, of course, famous composer and pianist in particular. But it seems like people play his stuff on marimba now and again. The big G word pieces. I don't know if you guys enjoy listening to how the various pronunciations of those pieces. I don't know if you can share any fun ones of like the G-Y. Wait, let me make sure I spell this right for everyone. I think I know how to say it, but it's been really fun over the years listening to like people's different attempts. I mean, especially Americans, like how they say these words.
Should we all try it and then let Ksenija just school us?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, I want to tell her what I think this is. I see if I'm right, but Gymnopedie, series of piano pieces. The funniest one I've ever heard of this is Gymnopedie. That's my favorite.
That's how it looks.
That is how it looks. I mean, it does look like that, but like that's certainly a bad guess.
Well, I've always said and heard, I think, Gymnopedie.
I think that's close. I always thought it was Gymnopedie.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's the accent.
Yeah. Al, have you ever heard a fun one of this? I don't know if you know these pieces or not.
I haven't heard of the pieces.
Haven't heard of them. Ksenija, let's hear what they're really called. I mean, if you know. I don't know why Karli just assumes you know. I mean, I teach at a university. I could know.
It's a gymnopédie, I think, but French is really. I don't speak French. I think I've heard the gymnopedia.
I've heard that too.
That's a good one.
It's a good name for like a gym. That would be really
like
cool.
Like an encyclopedia of gyms.
A book about a gym.
Yeah, or like a lexicon of gyms.
I hope people are still listening.
No one's still listening. What about the other one? What about Gnossienne? I think I know how to say this one too, but I've heard some funnier ones of this.
Well, I've heard, and I think this is how it's said, Nessienne,
That's what I thought it was. Yeah,
silent
Gnossienne.
G, right?
Yeah, I think so. Is that right, Ksenija?
I think. Okay, I come from a country that's like hours away by flying from France, and we don't speak French. But I think it's Nasian or
Or
Nosian.
Gnossienne. Yeah. Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, yeah. Let's see some quick fun facts about Eric Satie, and of course, those are the Gnossienne number one's the piece I played on marimba when I was a student, and I'd be thrilled to play again. I totally would. You hear that Je ne peux dire number one a lot on marimba, and yeah, it seems like it's getting more and more common. It's kind of these pieces are kind of nice because you can just straight play them. You don't have to adjust anything. They fit in the range. I think the at least Gnossienne number one. I think the lowest note's the F, if I remember, like F below. What was that F2, F1? I think it's F1. So that's kind of nice. They're very easy. You don't have to do any tricky adapting. You can play them in the original key. You don't have to change much because Eric Satie is known for that like simplistic, thin, minimalistic quality to his music, which is why they said he's like way ahead of his time. And although he hung out with all of the impressionists like Debussy and Ravel, and he improv piano at the Black Cat bar for puppet shadow puppet like theater. He did improvisation for that, so he kind of fit the bill to be a regular impressionist by who he was around, but his music is just very, very different. And that's why you'll sometimes hear people say like, yeah, Eric Satie predicted minimalism over 100 years before his time, and all that sort of thing. So some other fun facts about Eric Satie. The piece Vexations is often talked about. It's in 1893. This is a piece that has this 840 phrase repeat, and it's just a long piece that again is like very like cycle based and repetitive and minimalistic. Something Satie says that is, in order to play the theme 840 times in succession, it would be advisable to prepare oneself beforehand and in the deepest silence through serious immobility. So I guess he's saying be still and silent for a long time before you can get ready to repeat this phrase 840 times. He supposedly founded his own religion. So this says from 1891 to 92, Satie was composer in residence for the Mystical Order of the Rose and Cross of the Temple and Grail, an occult sect founded by Joseph Peladin. And yeah, Satie, along with some others, had this what they called mystical order. And what's another fun one? Let's see. He carried a hammer with him. His friends called him Mr. Poor because he was really poor. So I don't know, it's kind of just mean, but they called him Mr. Poor. And he carried a hammer with him, supposedly wherever he went, because he had to walk through really rough parts of town to get from point A to point B, lesson 1 to lesson 2, gig A to gig B, etc. And he carried a hammer with him for self-defense. Let's see, he barely graduated school, completing his studies only after returning. Oh, time out real quick. Just a minute.
Incoming.
Oh, he's running to the bathroom. That's really good. That's what he's supposed to do. That's awesome. He just like ran to the bathroom. That's so good. So Satie barely graduated music school, completing his studies only after returning at the age of 40. So like how you all tease me all the time for not having my doctoral degree, I might just go back when I turn 40 and finish it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but I definitely won't do that. So yeah, just some fun facts about Satie I dug up real quick, and his death date today on release date. So happy July 1, everybody, and happy death date to Eric Satie. Yeah, Karli?
Yeah, well, I was just checking the details on this, but a couple weeks ago I saw in 60 Minutes a pianist named Igor Levit, and he performed Vexations, I think on like his YouTube channel or Facebook or something. And there's this quote for him talking about the performance. He writes, "I was high as a monkey." So I guess that's representative of what it feels like to perform Vexations if you haven't experienced it.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, his music is generally easy. I mean, especially by piano standards. I mean, especially by impressionist standards, like the density there. Like I can play a lot of those piano pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very, very, very simple.
So a friend of mine performed it, Chi Wang Yim did, and he played it for 28 hours straight. And he told me that this required diaper training because he had to not go to the bathroom for that amount of time. I think this is amazing. This is exactly what Marina Abramovic would do, which I think
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just.
that's who came to mind. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
And how he said, that at some point he couldn't recognize his fingers anymore, that like the sounds that came out were right, but I think everything just sort of melts and blends, and it's so hypnotic, the experience. That's why perhaps, I don't know if the pianist was pre-high, like to prepare for the performance, or if they became high through the music, but I think that happens. Plus, that piece is, I think, a little bit tricky to read, because even though Satie's supposedly easy, this is just some sort of enharmonic, accidental nightmare of a piece. So it actually requires a lot of mental focus,
Yeah.
on top of you having to loop it for 28 hours. And I think he also had a counter on his, of course he had a counter on his piano, so he would always tap it at the beginning of a new to get to that 840. It's crazy. I think it's amazing. It's so impressive.
Did your friend say anything about like how, I don't know, well, what it's like playing a normal or traditional piece of music since that experience? Like, did that, I don't know, just kind of turn the volume down on regular performance after such a feat?
I can't say, we haven't had a conversation on how that's affected his, regular time music. But I think in general, this person is a lovely musician and loves to explore boundaries. I remember going into, because he was a conductor, he was a graduate assistant at the University of Miami when I was there. And I think during his first rehearsal with us, he showed up and had a silent rehearsal. So he just wouldn't speak to us. He would stop us and, gesture and mime minimally to get us to do something. So just a very creative person. But I don't know. I mean, I assume that his whole world turned upside down and then again after playing that.
I sure would think so. It just reminds me a little bit of the conversation we had with, oh man, he was the trombonist that had all the wonderful insight about 10,000 hour rule and stuff like that. Gosh, I'm embarrassed, can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Jason Suleiman?
Yeah, good job. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jason Solomon. Yeah, Jason. And anyway, one thing I remember mentioning on that show was I think it's really hard to totally waste time practicing something in music. I mean, it's probably very easy to waste time on a short-term goal. Like if you have a gig tomorrow and you have to learn the specific piece, well, like, okay, you have a very short amount of time and you're going to need to practice very specifically in a very specific way to achieve that. However, if you were to go up to a piano and just like let the note C drone over and over for 10 hours and not move, like, yeah, that probably doesn't have any immediate application to the kind of music we play on a regular basis, but I would think it would be like pretty transformative just from the sheer like mental discipline and mental stamina that it would require to do that. And I thought of that with Vexations. It's like, yeah, it's probably not very hard to play, but to do for 28 hours, yeah, of course. I mean, that's like a whole big philosophical journey and statement. And I can't imagine that wouldn't somehow impact your musicianship for the better.
Well, when you talk about like, oh, it's not that hard, but doing anything for 28 hours is hard. Think about bolero. Think about what every non-percussionist thinks about the snare drum part to bolero, which is so easy. And it's what, like, I don't know, 16 minutes long, and it's a 2-measure phrase. Like, how could it, and it's hard. I've only done it with orchestra once, and it's like, it's so mentally hard.
I thought it was so hard. I did it when I was in undergrad, like sophomore, junior, I think right in the middle of the degree. And yeah, I thought it was really, really hard. I thought it was too difficult to mentally not get distracted, to not observe what's around you and still maintain the little 2-bar pattern. I mean, I think I would be a lot better at it now, but that is because of this whole concept we're saying, like mental stamina, and having played Steve Reich for years in between now and then, which is another great example of the utility of maybe something like this. I mean, like a really long Steve Reich piece will kind of grind on you and will kind of wear on you. And I think people, especially who aren't used to that kind of music, I mean, it has a really bizarre effect on them, just the hypnotic, cyclical nature, repetitive nature of it. In fact, there was a news story we reported on years ago on the show where, the latest parental fear and parental panic was a new type of music that's getting your kids high. What we need to tell you at 5 o'clock on the news, and it was minimalism, and I don't think it was Steve Reich specifically, but it was something that was really droning and repetitive over and over and over. And, of course it's not making the kids high, but it is having this, almost dizzying kind of effect on them because they're not used to it, because they don't yet have that mental stamina and aren't used to enduring that for that long.
That's crazy. Wow. Don't let your children listen to Philip Glass. It's danger.
That's right.
Well, I actually thought that was kind of the benefit of, like, I think for a long time I didn't get, I'm not saying to get high from listening to music, but I didn't get minimalism. Like, I was like, everybody loves Steve Reich. I'm not sure why, but okay, I'll play it when I need to. And then I was in the audience, I guess it was when New World Symphony, their percussion consort, was doing music for 18 musicians. And I was like, oh my God, like today I get it. And it kind of got into, you get in like that trance-like mode of like, whoa, like all of this is happening and it's been happening and there's layers, and like, that's kind of, I don't know if that's the high they're talking about, but.
I guess so. And Al, please chime in any minute. I know you can't type, but just shout out, please. We want to hear what you think about any of this at any moment. I know something I've said in the past, like it seems like a really good example of music as like a cumulative effect. So from like a compositional standpoint, we're always wondering like, okay, I wrote 4 bars, what do I do next? It's like, well, what you do next really depends on the previous 4 bars. And if you try to write bar 5 without considering what was before it, you may not really get any benefit from the previous 4. So like listening to Steve Reich, if you fast forward 5 minutes in, it'll sound one way. But if you listen to the complete 5 minutes up to that point, that 5-minute point is different. And I remember when I was in high school, I was listening to, I think, Piano Phase, which can be about 20 minutes, and I think in the original it's somewhere around there. And I remember lying, trying to go to sleep listening to music as I did in high school, and probably like I don't know, just like 10 minutes in or so, I thought I started hearing voices. I thought I started hearing things being said. And of course, I thought like, oh, it's just kind of a trick of the ear, but it's still kind of cool that's happening. And I remember I like jotted down the time, 10 minutes, 20 seconds or whatever, on my bedside table or wherever. And then I thought, okay, cool, I'm gonna listen to that later. And then I fast forwarded to 10 minutes and 20 seconds the next day, and I didn't hear it. And I thought, oh, well, I must have written it down wrong. Maybe it was 9 minutes and 20, maybe it was 11, and I like searched for that sound, but I could never find that sound until starting all the way at the beginning and listening all the way through up to a certain point. So I think it's a good lesson in like the cumulative effect of listening, and how a quick 2 minutes is nothing like a 2 minutes after 10 minutes.
Yeah. So here's a question. Did you hear the same thing the second time? Like you got to that same point and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was hearing. Probably.
I did.
Well,
Yeah. Yep. Except I don't think it was at the exact same point, because I think I think it's just theory, if you pay attention like harder, right? Like if you concentrate and really listen more closely, you'll start to hear those illusions sooner. Whereas if you're more relaxed and you're not like getting all the information as deeply, and you're not getting all the sonic information as accurately, it'll take longer to have that effect on you.
Yeah, I was gonna It reminds me sort of, I watched some documentary or a series on Netflix, Abstract, and there was this fantastic artist who talked about all the stuff that he did, one of which was creating a rainbow. And how, a rainbow is created basically by a combination of sunlight and atmospheric conditions, but it also really needs the viewer to be at a certain point to be able to observe it, because you can't see the rainbow if you're in a certain part of the room, only, in this one or, selected spot. And the same goes for music. You simply must have everything align, and then time is also a part of it. You have to live with it for a while so that it would feel like that. I think that's amazing. Hey, that's free drugs, everybody. I just listen to a lot of minimalism.
I mean, your mood when you're listening too, like has such, at least for me, like if I'm kind of like a little hyper or like stressed or anxious or something, then like sitting down to listen to minimalism is like not what I'm excited about. But I suppose as you sit there, it can kind of like bring you down and be like, okay, I am going to sit here and be patient. I mean, I suppose that goes for all music and art that are where we're coming from when we consume it or experience it affects our perception.
I just remember when the first time I heard something like, Steve Reich, like, or like clapping music or something, I was dumbfounded on how somebody could get enjoyment out.
I think, Al, it was a little choppy there, but I think you said it. It was you thought it was amazing he got that much music out of that, like one measure of material. And yeah, of course, that's one of the tenets of minimalism. Like, let's get the most out of the least. And I was going to say also, Ksenija, I thought it was cool that you mentioned the artist describing rainbow, like it depends on the viewer's perspective, because I've heard Satie described this way as it's like he's treating themes to try to get you to alter perspective on them, and in order to do that, you have to hear it several times, then you have to take its fragments and start them in different places. And I think it was an article or maybe it was a teacher saying this, but it was like, the regular treatment of a theme is just like, hey, here it is, and then it's going to go do something and it's going to go places. And I'm holding a pencil if y'all can't see it, but Satie's treatment of a theme is like, okay, here it is, and let's think more about it, and now let's look at it this way, and let's look at it this way. So it's not like, oh, the theme goes off and transforms and does stuff, but you try to see it from different angles as it is right there, like without changing it. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that kind of made sense to how I hear a lot of those pieces also. Yeah.
Way to bring it back to Satie. That was nice.
It all came from the news. See, this is how we need every news segment to take 20 minutes. I think it's going to be one of the new goals of the show is the guest sits and waits for 20 minutes.
How can we make them wait longer?
Yeah, we can do it. Well, hey, one thing, Al mentioned that he thought would be cool to talk about was just kind of during this time, we're kind of on the tail end of this COVID, or at least we're kind of going into hopefully still like a cautious period in my view, but we're kind of stepping out of it maybe slowly and hopefully just kind of one toe at a time. But is there anything that you've all been doing, I guess all of us, to kind of get yourself back into performance space? And I guess kind of how have you been treating the time to get ready to go back into that? And I guess I'll go first and just say I performed at this American Percussion seminar just a few days ago, of course, just from the comfort of my office. But I think I've performed online enough that it's felt, it hasn't felt too intimidating to go back. And frankly, it doesn't feel like it's been all that long. I mean, I know it's been over a year, but it doesn't quite feel like it's been a whole year yet. I feel like just a lot of activities happened, and something I always try to recommend to friends and students is, whatever your life circumstances now, that it's probably the right time for something. And I think back to a buddy of mine who just got a new teaching job, is actually a choir director, got a new teaching job, and there weren't many students. and he was telling me, you know, I just wish I had more students so we could go on tour. Like, how am I supposed to build a program when I don't have more students? This wasn't at any institution I have taught at, by the way, but how am I supposed to do that when I don't have more students? Like, I should be on tour. I should be taking them around and recruiting and making recordings, and like that's what I'm here to do. And my response was like, yeah, you're right, that would be ideal, but you know what? I can also imagine you coming to me and saying like, I just don't have any time to write. I don't have any time to do research. I don't have any time to work on my own singing because I'm just like constantly on tour. I'm just like busy, busy, busy. I'm traveling everywhere, and I'm like booking charter buses and booking hotels and talking to parents and paying off cops to clean up some mess the kids did. You know what I mean? It's like well, we'll do the thing that you have time to do now, because you might not have time to do that. So I feel like now you're stuck at home. Okay, it's time to get amazing snare drum chops, or it's time to really start writing, or so on and so forth. You know, so I don't know. It hasn't honestly been too difficult for me, because I think I've been very good at like, oh, I don't know what to do right now, but like there's definitely like something I want to do that is ideal for being stuck at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all seen so many people in different organizations, and like so many projects are coming out of this time, which is awesome and inspiring. I kind of agree. It hasn't coming back to performance, or just kind of having fewer performances hasn't felt bad. It hasn't felt like a negative thing. But here's some things that I've noticed. I don't know if any of you have felt this, but like I get more nervous now for each performance because there haven't been as many, and there's been a ton of recording. Like everybody's recording a ton, and it's like, oh, if you make a mistake, you just go and edit it or get another take or whatever. So I think that's one thing. I'm like, whoa, this feels different. Everything's fine, but like the nerves are just elevated. And here's another thing, like I've been playing almost entirely on the same instruments for over a year, and like we're so used to switching, and when we're playing different places all the time, like, oh, this instrument is 4 inches shorter than mine, or whatever, like we just adjust like it's no big deal. And now I'm like, what, like this, like really, this marimba is that low, and I used to be fine with it, and little things like that. But kind of overall, I'm just feeling like when I do have to learn notes, like, oh, there's a new solo or chamber piece or orchestra part or whatever, like I have so much more headspace for it than I did with all the hustle of everything that was going on before. And that's just a blessing. Like I'm learning faster. I'm kind of able to spread it out more and just do it with a kind of healthier approach. One of the things, I hope I can maintain that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you both said. I think I'm pretty good at self-motivation. In fact, I don't think I've ever lacked that. So the moment that this pandemic hit, I just went into my own projects, and like stupidly difficult projects that would take forever, because I knew that I have I have the capacity to handle stupid and forever at this point. So I just did that Rite of Spring, and now we recorded it, and that's gonna come out as like my debut album or something with my wonderful pianist Lika. Yeah, that's amazing, and that's a huge learning curve, just to figure everything out about publishing, self-publishing, and I mean all of that. There's so many mistakes that I made and that I'm fixing and so on. So yeah, I can't say it's I think I deal pretty well with these incubation processes where I'm just isolated and I just work. So I'm sort of naturally adept to that stuff. What about you, Alan?
I don't perform nearly as much as you guys do. But what I've been trying to do, I finally got with a band. So we're starting to get ready to do our first couple gigs, and I went to play, and I felt myself looking down, being so inwardly focused that I wasn't looking at them. I wasn't doing anything. I was focused on just playing. So I've currently done the whole mirror trick. I went to Walmart. I spent $50-$60 and bought a wall full of those little door mirrors and turned an entire wall into a mirror so I could watch myself and see the movements I want to see, that kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think we have all, for those of us who have been lucky to have the opportunity to, stay healthy and sane throughout this process. I really I can't say I've met anyone who said they haven't grown through this, that they haven't learned something about themselves. And that's why these moments of I mean, quiet, quote unquote, even though there was chaos outside. Somehow there, at some point, we all had to sit down and just think a lot about ourselves, about our decisions, about everything. I mean, whether it's related to music or to social justice, whatever you felt was, took your attention in the past year. I feel like we've all grown through it, and I mean, it's dangerous to say, but again, for those of us who have been, knock on wood, left with fortunate outcomes, I mean, this pandemic has been, in a way, uh, it could be a blessing, if you just know how to use it, and if you have, again, the privileges and the luxuries and the capacities to turn that time into something that's good for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think maybe silver linings is the term I've been using a ton throughout all of this, because it's hard to say blessing, like there are blessings. I mean, I think many people are benefiting from being able to take a step back from basically everything, look at my life, look at, what I'm doing on a daily basis. Is it helping me? How can I adjust things? And for some people, I think some people have financial security, and that's even better, but just being able to have more time and space to process and make change. Like, we were all forced to basically change everything on a dime. And I don't know, probably everybody, if you said, even a week before everything shut down, like, could you teach online, and could you function as a musician for over a year online and still have positive, productive outcomes and meaningful experiences? Like, we would have been like, no, we're musicians, like, we have to be in person, there's no alternative, we can't do it. But it's been, I mean, I think it's been good for a lot of people, aside, pandemic aside, and also social unrest and those kinds of issues that have been, traumatic and challenging.
Of course, and I should have been more careful when I spoke about it all. Um, this is all, of course, devastating and never to be wished upon anyone, because it can bring such horrific tragedy, and it did to so many people. And these things are not to be taken lightly. But I
Did I
remember.
miss a hot take?
Yes, you did, but you're
Man.
going to learn by editing.
Okay.
We're talking about the pandemic, and I said a hot take was that it could be seen as a blessing, and then Karli was way smarter and said there might be silver linings, and that's true. But I when I look back, growing up, there were two wars in my country when I was a kid. One when I was like 3 to 7 years old, sort of, and then again when I was 10. And I didn't get to go to school. School cut out when I was in fourth grade, and I lived in a bomb shelter, and I didn't get to do music really that much anymore. We were without power, water, like all of that stuff that similarly sort of happened to a lot of people the past year with the pandemic and with the like natural disasters and wars and everything. But I mean, I understand that I am incredibly lucky that none of my family members or people who are close to me got injured or killed in any of those conflicts. I understand that's huge, huge, huge. But would I change that past for myself? No, because I've learned so much about what is really worth stressing over and what really isn't, and what are some things that can keep you afloat, and what really matters, how much family matters, how much art matters in those difficult moments. And so for me, I think stressing over small things, I mean, what I call small things in music, probably stopped then, because what I had was I could go play the piano, or I could play the guitar, or I could read. I couldn't play video games even though I really wanted to. I couldn't watch TV even though I really wanted to. I could sit down with my dad and learn 4 chords on a guitar. And I still use that today to like heal me when I need to just sort of run away from things, or turn something into a song or whatever. And that all came through that. It was like a shitty street that led down to a little nugget of gold. But again, all with having in mind that I was incredibly lucky that I didn't have to pay a price for that. That was as huge as some people did.
My friend from Bosnia who lived through the same wars said the same thing, you know. Yeah, and did see some gnarly things, but yeah, still like huge amount of just life experience and benefit from what I guess was really eye opening, and stuck with her, you know. And I'm sorry my internet cut out, because Ksenija, I bet you had a cool answer, because don't you have a performance coming up fairly soon, or you've had some performances recently, right, Ksenija?
I recorded my album recently, but I have a performance in New York City, so it's going to be the first time that I'm going to travel and go perform The Rite of Spring for someone, which is so exciting.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, when that album comes out, we'll have to really, we'll have to do a whole dedicated episode, because we don't get enough info on recording and how this whole process happens. Well, hey, I was also going to ask you all, we're kind of at this end of a few seasons wrap up. We're coming up on 300 episodes, and we're going to take a quick break. And I don't know, just before we close out here for the day, does anybody have any favorite moments from, I don't know, the last many shows that we've done together before we say bye for a while?
The first one that came to me when I thought about this was Alanati's episode. That was back episode 265, and how at the end of the episode, it was like, a luminary. The whole episode was so great. It was so great to meet him and speak with him. And then I think it was Ben was hosting and says like, hey, like, is time out for a second. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about this episode before we wrap? And he's like, well, do you have a minute to hear me perform something? It was like, yes, like that was just such a highlight. That was so cool. And he played that piece for a prepared piano. It was called The Submerge by Mark Saya. I can't remember how it was pronounced, from the Book of Imaginary Beings. And that was the top of my list, thinking about highlights of the last 9 months or years.
I feel like we've gotten so lucky getting some good performances. It's always such a gamble. Like, okay, is it going to work over Skype or over Zoom?
Right.
Like, is it going to work? Is it going to work? And Audie's performance really worked. And I was going to say the same thing. And I'm sure we've already said it before, but Steve Schick's performance of Touche also, like, it just sounded so good. And I think we've said it already. I feel like Ksenija said it before, but like the commitment he played it for us in his garage.
Yes.
In a very small audience. I mean, and I know, like, he knows this is going out to hundreds of listeners, maybe more, and it's going to be up, as long as the internet will allow us to have it up. And so, he knows it's a bigger audience, but he's also played, in front of 1,000 people at PASIC and probably more, and done above and beyond all of that, So for him to, I don't know, put that much dedication and just love into that performance in his garage for us, I thought was it was like really inspiring. So that's my moment. So
that's your moment? Damn it.
Yeah, sorry. I know. I thought that was going to be yours. I could tell.
No, but I just thought how the podcast has given me a myriad of emotions. So I've been on this screen crying and hysterically laughing in some episodes, mostly hysterically laughing because Casey makes fun of me of the way that I don't understand chess, for example, when I called them figurines, and how he made a big deal out of that. Or that time when Casey told us
was fun.
About peeing and Night on a Bald Mountain in front of Christoph, which is our most listened episode, I think, in the past year, at least on on YouTube, and it
Yeah.
opens talking about his peeing experience when he was a teenager.
With a creepy old man. Yeah, that's right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, Night on Bald Mountain. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I don't need to repeat it, I don't think.
Just go
You
back.
beeped, whoever edited beeped out the right thing.
Correct thing. Yeah.
Like this old man said something inappropriate to me, and yeah, it's one of those urinal talks. You know, Al, like you're in the bathroom and you're like you're at the urinal and you're going, and like, you know, your professor comes up right next to you and you're like, oh, damn it. And then they like try to talk to you and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. It was kind of one of those.
I do remember that episode.
Oh, good.
Casey brought up peeing in multiple episodes, and there was that one moment of talking about how peeing into a piano affects the piano tuning. We had that one.
Oh, God, yeah.
True story. Yeah, true story. We had a piano peer at my school, Utah State University, APB out for a character that was going into the pianos and peeing in them.
I think that was the Dan Levitan episode.
Yeah.
Now there's this word association, right?
Well, it's funny, like, because right. Well, it's funny because we bring up these ridiculous stories, but I'm pretty sure Dan Levitan, you know, when we were done, he was one, like sometimes our most like prestigious, like, you know, big name guests, they're the ones that say like, this thing is cool. You guys are doing a cool thing, you know? How did you, remember Dan Levitan saying, how'd you guys get together? This is cool. How'd this come about, you know? So.
But I mean, I'm so grateful for literally every episode. If it isn't a guest that I brought in because I knew them, I've met so many wonderful people through the three of you, and through Brian and all of our, you know, all of our ringers. But you know, I've cried on so many as well, whether it was Bresnik or Steve Schick. I just feel like I'm really so grateful because it just means so much to me that this podcast gives me everything. It gives me all the range of emotions that I could have, and I'm moved to tears and I get to hysterically laugh. So I just think I don't know, I'm super grateful. I guess I'd like to dedicate my answer to you all for helping broaden my views so much and for being such great friends. And I love this thing. And then all the people who support us, like Alan, and Jorge and Manny and so on. I mean, we have a great crew. The listeners who chime in all the time, who I get to communicate with on social media for their suggestions. I mean, this whole thing has been such a wonderful experience in this one long season that we're gonna interrupt for a brief period now. But yeah, just so many highlights. I can't.
A 6-year season. No, well, thanks, Ksenija, and yeah, right back at you. You know, it's like we're super lucky to have you, and yeah, Karli, Ben, we're super lucky to have you too. Ben's not here today, I know, but yeah, I mean, it's really cool. Like, you know, we've had some host rotation throughout because it takes work, it takes effort just to prepare, you know, to prepare our segments and book the guests and do all that. So no, right back at you. Thanks a lot. You know, I knew right from the beginning, like I can't do this the way I want to alone. You know, like I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to research stuff. I won't be able to research stuff and book guests. You know, it's like I could do one of these things, but I won't be able to do all this by myself. It's going to have to be a team effort. And I think the thing I'm really proud of over 6 years, I guess, is it's kind of almost turned into like a community. You know, we have all our satellite co-hosts, like we have Tracy Wiggins and Bill Shaltis and Brian Nosny, Brandon Arve. We've had these people who've kind of, you know, Caleb Pickering, you know, at the drop of a hat will say like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll join, you know, I can do today, or they want to do today or whatever. So I kind of, you know, I hope that kind of continues, you know, like I feel like the more I've been able to let it go, the better. And I hope that with our patrons too, like that happens, you know. I think it'd be fun in the future if there were just like a patron collective and they had their own, you know, maybe we weren't even there or something, you know. I don't know. I'd love to see like just kind of how the community spreads a little more. So yeah, right back at you. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Al. Yeah, glad you joined us today. Yeah,
it's fun.
give you at least a little conversation to hear for your car ride. And okay, everybody, we will see you in about a month and a half, something like that. We'll be back in line and back in action sometime in August. So, okay, quick break for a little while, and then we'll see you then. All right, bye, everybody. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.